Hello, everyone. Max Voltage here, and today we're going to be talking about Flux. And are you ready for the Flux Collateral Halving, or halving, however you want to pronounce it? Yeah, are you ready? Are you ready? So what we're going to talk about is what the Flux halving is and what it means for Flux. We're going to talk a little bit about the economics of running a Flux node, as well as the requirements, both internet or connection and hardware requirements. And then we'll go over a little bit about the different options that you can do in order to run a Flux node if you choose to run one. So the Flux halving has been announced for quite some time, and basically what it is they are decreasing the collateral requirements for running a Flux node. It's really just as simple as that. So for instance, the Cumulus node is going from 10,000 Flux requirement down to 1,000. And obviously with the increase in value in Flux, that made a lot of sense because they weren't getting a lot of users online. Also with this halving, they're also increasing the hardware requirements of each of the nodes. So something that was a Cumulus node before may not work with the halving because there's an increase in the requirements. But we'll go into the requirements in a little bit. So what are the economics of a Flux node? We're going to talk a little bit about how the rewards are divvied up. The block rewards are divvied up with Flux. We'll talk about that a little bit later, but basically this is the economics as it is today. With a 10,000 Flux collateral, you're going to make approximately about $200 a month. That's pretty good considering my Raspberry Pi with all the bells and whistles I got was probably on about $250 all in. So payback of just over a month. Yeah, I'll take that. Thank you very much. But with that said, we'll go into it. It's much like mining is, where the more nodes that come online, that is going to dilute the earnings because the block rewards are a finite resource. So more nodes means less for everybody else, especially for the Cumulus, which is going to be the easiest one for everybody to get into. So time will tell to see how many more nodes come online with this decrease in collateral requirements. And then the Nimbus, we'll go over that in just a second because let's go on to the next screen. So here's basically the requirements. So Cumulus is 1,000, Nimbus is 12,500 Flux, and then Stratus is 40,000. And they're rolling these out at different times. So the first one is Cumulus. So that one is happening March 12th, basically happening on Sunday. That is when it will happen. 1,000 Flux is required for Cumulus. That's what I've been focusing on. And thought this would be kind of a fun little project. So I decided to do it with an ARM64 device, which is a Raspberry Pi 4B 8 gig, because it meets the 2 cores, 4 threads requirement, the 8 gig of RAM. You have to add a 220 gig or at least a 220 gig SSD or NVMe, depending on what your device is capable of. And it needs 180 megabits per second read-write speed, 240 executions per second minimum requirement. The actual Raspberry Pi 4B actually gets over 600. So definitely easily meets that and almost gets close. It's like 615. It almost gets close to the Nimbus requirement on that. Certainly doesn't meet the 32 gig of RAM requirement on the Nimbus. And then the thing that people get caught up on is this 25 megabits bandwidth. So this, when they're saying it here as far as bandwidth, that's your upload speed. That's what they're saying is a requirement. Well, up and down. But most people no trouble meeting the down requirement. It's the up requirement because I shouldn't say everybody's, most people's upload speeds are slower than their download speeds. So having 25 megabits per second bandwidth or upload speed is a requirement for the Cumulus node. I had to upgrade my internet to actually 1.2 gigabyte internet because that was the only way I could get above this 25 megabit bandwidth. So I'm basically paying $20 extra a month for this increase in service. I don't mind because I like the 1.2 gigabyte service or gigabit service. It is nice to have that fast download. That's for sure. I've been benefiting from that for a little bit less than a week, and I really, really like it. So yeah, it's one of those things. I look at this node as actually helping to pay for that extra $20 of internet costs. So that's what I've focused on, is the Cumulus. Obviously, coming down the road at March 19th, we're going to have the Nimbus halving, and then the Stratus halving is happening March 27th. All of these are happening at different times. So when we look at the profitability of each of these, what it really comes down to is what percentage of the overall block reward are each of these node groups going to be allocated. So Cumulus is added 7.5% of the total block reward. That's how much is allocated. Mining, by the way, is 50%. And then all of the nodes add up to the other 50%. So 7.5 plus 12.5 is 20% plus 30%. There you go. Again, if there's a ton of Cumulus nodes that come online, that's just going to decrease all of the Cumulus nodes quite a bit. Now, what may happen is people that were on the 10,000 Cumulus node, if they have 10,000 Cumulus already, they're probably going to be shooting for the Nimbus node anyway. And a lot of people are already running VPS servers instead of trying to run something out of their house. So there's a lot of things at play as to how this is all going to pan out and what will be profitable, what won't be as profitable. So it's going to be interesting to see how this all, plays itself out. Is it going to be like mining Ethereum, where the hash rate keeps getting higher and higher and higher and higher, so your rewards keep getting lower? Who knows? But like I said, I did this for a fun little project. I thought it'd be interesting. Have this cute little PC sitting on my desk, just sitting there processing away, making me money, kind of like a helium miner, or basically similar. I look at it as kind of like a helium miner, where it's just kind of sitting there doing its thing. You don't really think about it, but you're making money at it. So that's what that 7.5%, the 12.5%, and the 30% means. I've seen some people think that the 7.5% means that you're going to make 7.5% return on your money. That isn't what this means at all. It's the percentage of the block rewards that you will be receiving. So what are your options for creating a Flux node? So you could do the simple route, which is get a VPS. This is one actually thanks to Serpent X Tech. He definitely helped me out with this by showing me this. This is a good priced VPS. And you can see this one right here, the $11.99, that would be plenty, more than enough actually, that what I would need in order to run a Cumulus node for less than the $20 extra that I'm paying per month for the internet that I'm getting. So this is an inexpensive option to create a Flux node. Flux is trying to get people to run things decentralized, because obviously when you run things on a VPS, that's the possibility of centralizing things. But the VPS has backup internet, so your uptime on something like this is going to be higher. And if you are down, if your node goes down because your internet is down, there is a delay in actually getting back online and making money, because they want only the most reliable nodes to basically be the ones making the money. So there's a little bit of a penalty if you go offline. So keep that in mind. So there are definite advantages to running a VPS versus running a Raspberry Pi solution. But like I said, I didn't just do this to make money. I did it because I thought it'd be interesting to set up. I actually probably, if I do get another 1,000 Flux, I probably will set up a VPS as well. I may set up a second Raspberry Pi to see if that works, because I don't have 50, so I can't just double the 25, but I think it would still work. Here is where I got my Raspberry Pi 4. There's no affiliate link with this. use at your own discretion, but you definitely have to make sure you get an 8 gig version. There are definitely a lot of different kits to order, but they're only selling them through the kits, kind of like Newegg in their packages. Although at least all of this package makes sense together. For me, the only thing I used was the power supply and the actual Raspberry Pi 4B. Didn't use the SD card, although I probably will use that in the future for something else. Didn't use the adapter because I already had an adapter. Didn't use the mini HDMI to HDMI because the case that I'm about to show you actually has a full size HDMI connector, and didn't use the case and the fans. I used one of the heat sinks just because it fit and I could. The other two are actually handled by the kit. And then obviously I use the power supply. So, but this is the place I found that you could get it the soonest. March 31st is pretty darn soon, considering if you've looked for Raspberry Pi 4Bs at all, they have been extremely hard to find, no matter any kind. So this one actually has the 1 gig and the 2 gig in stock. So that's kind of surprising. So anyway, this is where I got mine from. I ended up putting it in this case, the Argon 1 M.2. So it has like a bottom tray that you put the M.2 over here, and then it connects through this adapter. It connects it the one side to the other. So it connects it directly from this bottom PCB up to the Raspberry Pi off the back of the unit. And then I have obviously connected via Ethernet and then the power delivery up here. I really only use the HDMI connector for when I was setting this thing up. But the real nice feature of this is this metal housing actually has, let me see if I get the right picture here. That is not the right picture. That's the right picture. So these two pads right here actually line up with the CPU and the memory on the Raspberry Pi 4, and they have supply thermal pads to connect it to the Raspberry Pi 4 to get good thermal delivery. So this whole unit is a heat sink with a fan, so to keep the temperatures down, and you have the ability to program that fan to come on and off at different times. So I thought this was really inexpensive. It's only $45, maybe a little expensive for what it is, I guess, but really some cool engineering with this. So I have running with this, and then I also got a M.2 does not take NVMe. It only takes SATA. So get yourself a SATA drive. I basically got myself a 256 gig SATA M.2 drive by Team Group. And as well as you need to have the operating system on a micro SD card. So I also got a 128 gig micro SD card for that as well. So that's basically the different components that I use to do this. I actually will have an upcoming video on what I did to get this set up. It is a fairly long process to do. I will in that video also have a link to the source that I used to get that up and running. I'll explain all this in that video. So keep your eyes open for that. I've actually taped a lot of it. Recorded a lot of that. I'm showing my age. Recorded a lot of it. I just need to edit it and put it together. This is basically all that's required. It's not really that difficult. There are some gotchas in getting it set up. One of the things is know a little bit of networking. I ran into the problem of the port forwards not working, but not really sure if that's because I can't start my node yet. I do have found a workaround for it, which I will go over in that video. But anyway, I just wanted to go over some of the basic questions that I've heard people asking, which is, what is it? How do I get started? What do I need? And hopefully that answered those questions for you. If you have any additional questions, please put them in the comments below. I will do my best to get those answered for you. Also, if you like this content, please hit the like button, as it does help the YouTube algorithm basically put me in people's searches. So I appreciate that. And if you like this kind of content, please subscribe to the channel. I appreciate it. Alrighty, guys, that's it for today. And thanks for tuning in. And we will see you soon on Misfit Mining Saturday Night Live, as well as Mondays with Max. All right. Have a good one, guys.